They laughed when they saw our ships until they learned what we had already conquered. The alien council gathered in the radiant chamber of the Arco's dominion, a hall of shimmering crystal that pulsed with thought and power. Around the circular dais, 8 species of the Galactic Union Stordor floated watching the holographic projection of a small blue planet rotating in the void Earth. "They're attempting interstellar travel," one of the Zyrans snickered, its voice like metallic chimes, "out of metal and fuel. Pathetic, their crafts barely reach their own moon." The others murmured in agreement. The humans, recent entrants to the galactic stage, had sent a handful of expeditions into the solar frontier, teeny ships, fragile as glass compared to the colossal living vessels of the Arcos fleets. To the council, humans were amusing, curious, reckless, and insignificant. The Arcos had crossed light centuries in vessels grown from organic crystal, vessels that could fold space itself. To see humans launch into the void with combustion engines and welded panels was, to them, like watching insects try to leap into the sky by flapping their limbs. "Do you know," the Viharan delegate hissed, "that their ships require oxygen to sustain them? They carry fire within their bellies to move. Primitive, dangerous, they are one miscalculation away from turning their vessels into ash." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Only one alien did not laugh. Admiral Kether of the Sol Observation Corps had seen something the others had not. During the surveillance of Earth, he had observed something that unsettled him. "They are primitive," he said slowly, "but not without resilience." A ripple of confusion passed through the council. "Resilience," the Zyran echoed. "They fear even their own seas. Their vessels crumble under cosmic storms." Kether gestured, and the hologram changed. Oceans replaced stars. Great rolling waves filled the air, and atop them teeny wooden ships, fragile, yes, but moving, endlessly moving. "These," Kether said, "are their ancestors. Long before their machines, before their rockets or satellites, they crossed their own planet's oceans. They built these out of trees." The chamber fell silent. The image zoomed in. A human crew stood upon the deck of a wooden sailing ship, faces hardened by salt and sun, eyes staring toward a distant horizon. Waves the size of mountains crashed around them, and yet they sailed on with no shields. "No engines, no star maps," Kether continued. "Just wind and will." The Zyran's chittering laughter faltered. "You're saying they crossed oceans with these wooden contraptions?" "Yes," said Kether. "Vast, endless oceans. Many perished, but still they went, again and again." "Why?" the Viharan asked, genuinely perplexed. "For conquest, for survival, for curiosity," Kether replied. "They wanted to see what lay beyond the horizon." The hologram shifted organ images of caravels, Viking longships, Polynesian canoes, Chinese treasure ships, everyone a testament to madness or genius. The council chamber was silent now, the laughter replaced by something else, unease, respect, perhaps. Because if a species had once crossed entire oceans in floating wood, perhaps it wasn't so unthinkable that they would one day cross galaxies in burning steel. And Admiral Kether knew one thing with growing certainty. When humans pointed their fragile ships toward the stars, it wasn't technology they were testing, it was their courage. And courage, unlike metal, does not break. They thought the fire would consume us, but they didn't understand we've always burned to go farther. The council reconvened weeks later. A new image hovered in the air, a human ship breaking apart in orbit, flames trailing like the tail of a wounded comet. The aliens watched in silence as the wreckage fell back toward Earth's atmosphere, turning to ash before their eyes. The Zyran delegate's voice sliced through the stillness. "They call this progress. Their ships perish before they even leave their cradle." Kether did not answer. He remembered watching that same ship through his own observation lenses, feeling something he could not quite name. Grief, perhaps, or because before that ship the Valkyrie had died, it had done something remarkable. It had carried humans farther than any of their kind had ever gone, past the moon, into the dark quiet between planets. It had dared to reach for the void, where no air, no sound, no safety existed, and its crew had smiled as they left their home behind. They were aware of the risks, Kether murmured. They knew the engines might fail, the radiation might kill them. And still, they went. The hologram replayed the transmission logs, crackling voices through static. "We see her now, Earth. She's smaller than I thought. Tell them we made it." And then silence. The Viharan sneered. "Wasteful sentimentality. Why risk your life for nothing but distance?" Kether turned to him, his eyes glowing with restrained anger. "Because to them, distance is everything. It is their frontier, their proof that fear does not define them. Another alien, a translucent being of liquid form, rippled thoughtfully. You sound almost admiring, Kether. He hesitated. Perhaps I am. The humans, he realized, were not building ships of metal, they were building stories, stitching courage into every bolt and plate. Their vessels were not monuments of engineering, but of faith. Faith that there was something beyond the familiar sky worth dying for. He summoned another projection. Images from centuries earlier. Wooden ships again, but this time, wrecked upon reefs, broken in storms, splintered on alien shores of their own planet, and yet, always rebuilt, always launched again. Every time they fell, Kether said, they learned. Every loss became a compass. A long silence followed. Even the Zyran seemed contemplative. Finally, a younger delegate, a slender being from the Nereth species, asked, "Do they ever stop, when they lose so much?" Kether almost smiled. "No, they mourn, and then they build again. Their pain becomes their sail." He turned his gaze back to the flickering image of the destroyed Valkyrie. Even now, their next ship is being prepared. Larger, stronger. They will call it Odyssey, and it will rise where the last one fell. The council watched the small blue world turning in the dark, a fragile orb of life wrapped in thin clouds. "They are reckless," the Zyran whispered. Kether nodded. "Yes, reckless enough to survive anything." And in that moment, for the first time, the council did not laugh. They only stared, wondering how a species so delicate could possess a spirit so unbreakable. For the Arco's dominion, it was a mystery, but for humanity, it was simply Tuesday. They thought the sea was the end until we built ships that turned the end into a beginning. The Odyssey stood on the launch field like a sleeping titan, a column of silver and flame, carved from the dreams of 1,000 engineers and the ghosts of 1,000 failures. Its hull shimmered with morning frost. The sun rose over the Atlantic, casting long shadows across the crowd of trembling watchers below. Among them was Commander Elise Navarro, her gloved hands folded behind her back, heart pounding like a second countdown clock. She had grown up listening to stories of wooden ships and steel rockets, of men and women who sailed until the edge of the map turned into the unknown. Now, she would sail farther than any of them ever had. Mission control to Odyssey systems check complete. Arco for ignition. Up in orbit, unseen by any human eye, the Arco's council watched. Kether's breath slowed as the data streamed in. The human ship, this Odyssey, was astonishingly crude compared to alien standards. Combustion engines, fragile life support, clumsy communication relays. Yet beneath all that inefficiency burned something alien to them, a kind of defiance that bordered on holiness. The launch sirens wailed, thrusters roared. The Odyssey rose on a column of fire so bright that even the Arco sensors had to dim their optics. "She's burning herself apart," muttered the Zyran delegate. Kether smiled faintly. "That's how they begin everything, with fire, through smoke and turbulence." The Odyssey clawed her way free of gravity's grip. Within minutes, she broke the veil of blue and burst into the black ocean above. Inside the cabin, Navarro exhaled as the engines quieted. Before her eyes, Earth floated below blue, fragile, and impossibly beautiful. "Mission control," she whispered. We are out of the sea." There was a pause. Then cheers filled the radio. From the observation ring aboard the Arco's mothership, the alien delegates stood silent, the image of the Odyssey suspended before them, a tiny craft against the infinite void. The Viharan delegate tilted his horned head. "It's small, yes," said Kether softly, "but it's moving." They watched as the human ship adjusted trajectory, aligning for its long journey toward the outer planets. There were no shields, no warp drives, no cloaking arrays. Just fragile humans, sealed inside a can of steel, propelled by the same instinct that had once pushed their ancestors to cross oceans with nothing but canvas and hope. The Nereth delegate spoke in a whisper. "They risk everything for curiosity." Kether's eyes glowed with reflection, not just curiosity. He projected another image beside the Odyssey, old archival footage of wooden ships from centuries past, sails billowing in the wind. The alien council stared as the two images flickered side by side, wood and steel, ocean and vacuum. "See," Kether said, "they've never changed, they just replaced waves with stars." For a long moment, the council was utterly still. Then, something unexpected happened. The Zyran leaned forward, his crimson eyes narrowing. "Prepare a contact signal," Kether froze. "You would reveal ourselves." "They've earned that much," the Zyran replied. "Let's see if they truly understand what it means to sail beyond the edge." On the bridge of the Odyssey, alarms flickered. A soft tone pulsed through the cabin. Navarro frowned. "Mission control, we're receiving a signal." It's not ours. Her co-pilot looked up, confused. What kind of signal? The lights dimmed. A voice, no. A vibration filled the air. Not words, not sounds, just presence. And in that instant, humanity learned that the ocean they had been crossing was much larger than they'd ever dreamed. Every voyager dreams of meeting gods, but the truth is gods are just travelers who started earlier. For 2 days, the Odyssey drifted in silence. The strange signal repeated at precise intervals, like a heartbeat pulsing across the void. It was not random static, not a cosmic echo. It was deliberate. Commander Navarro stared at the readings. "It's intelligent," she whispered. "It's waiting for us." Her communications officer Yara Malik frowned at the spectral display. "It's layered. Each pulse carries harmonic, data-encoded light, not sound, almost like music. Music." Navarro turned. "Translate it." Hours passed. Computers, word. The code unraveled, piece by piece. And then, through the static, came a sound no human had ever heard, a resonance that hummed directly in the bones, bypassing the ears. It wasn't words, but emotion, curiosity, surprise, and an undertone of respect. Yara stared, trembling. "They're not warning us off, they're greeting us." Light exploded outside the view. From the darkness emerged a structure massive like a continent of glass and metal suspended in orbit. The Arco's observation vessel had revealed itself at last. It shimmered with spectral color, its surface bending starlight like water. Navarro's breath caught. Mother of God, the alien ship was beautiful, terrifyingly so. It looked alive, its hull pulsing faintly as though breathing. Human scanners could barely comprehend its shape. Angles shifted, reality rippled around it. Then a voice entered there, come soft, resonant, unmistakably deliberate. "You have crossed your ocean. Welcome to the deep." On the Arco's ship, Kether stood in the communication chamber, his translucent hands hovering over a crystalline console. Around him, the council observed, half cautious, half entranced. "They've responded," said the Nereth delegate in disbelief. "Primitive minds shouldn't process multidimensional signal patterns this fast." "They're not primitive," Kether said calmly. "They're human." He adjusted the harmonic translator, matching frequencies to human cognition levels. Slowly, their two languages began to align, emotion folding into sound. The connections stabilized. Commander Navarro's voice came through, trembling but firm. "This is Commander Elise Navarro of the human vessel Odyssey." "Identify yourself," Kether replied, his tone steady and reverent. "We are the Arco's Dominion, observers, historians of the stars." Navarro exchanged glances with her crew. "You've been watching us since your species first built sails," Kether answered. "We thought you were bound to your small seas, too fragile to rise. But you crossed water, then air, and now this. We are here to understand why." Navarro took a deep breath. "Because the horizon isn't a limit, it's an invitation." The silence that followed was almost holy. The Zyran delegate hissed softly. "They speak like poets." "Poets," Kether murmured, "often become gods in the eyes of those who stop daring." He turned back to the projection of Era's determined face, lit by the glow of her ship's console. "Commander Navarro," he said, "your people remind us of what we have forgotten. How to wander. We once traveled for discovery. Now we only travel for control." Her voice softened. "Then maybe we can teach each other." For the first time in millennia, the Arco's Dominion felt hope. In a universe ruled by efficiency and fear, here was a fragile species that dared to reach into the dark without knowing what waited there and did it anyway. Kether lowered his head respectfully. "Then let this be the first meeting between our kinds, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as fellow voyagers." Navarro smiled faintly, agreed. The signal flared again, brighter this time to worlds connecting across the void. Humanity had found not gods, but equals. And somewhere deep in the heart of the Arco's ship, ancient records began to rewrite themselves, adding a new chapter. The day the humans arrived, they wanted to see the stars. What they didn't expect was for the stars to look back. The invitation arrived not as words, but as lighter web of radiance that enveloped the Odyssey, forming a bridge of energy between the human vessel and the Arco's mothership. The crew stared through the viewport as the shimmering tunnel pulsed, stretching into infinity. Commander Navarro's voice trembled. "Mission Control, the Arcos are inviting us aboard," Static answered. The transmission back to Earth had long since faded into silence. Out here, humanity was truly alone and, yet no longer. She turned to her crew. "Suit up." Yara Malik's lips quivered between awe and fear. "Commander, what if this is a trap?" Navarro smiled faintly. "Every discovery is a trap if you stop at the doorstep." The airlock opened and the crew stepped into the bridge of light. Weight vanished, time rippled. Their bodies became echoes of themselves, stretched through a corridor of stars, and then solid ground again. They stood on the Arco's ship. If cathedrals could float, they would look like this. The chamber was vast and fluid, made of translucent metal that glowed with a soft internal luminescence. Structures breathed, shifting subtly as if the ship were alive. The walls whispered with the hum of energy so old it felt sacred. Kether appeared before them, tall, graceful, his form a fusion of flesh and light. His eyes, twin orbs of pale gold, regarded the humans with what could only be called reverence. "Welcome aboard the Celestial Archive," he said. "This is where we keep the stories of every civilization that ever reached the stars." Navarro looked around, her voice barely a whisper. "You collect them, we preserve them," Kether replied. "Empires rise, species fall, but their journeys remain. We were once like you, filled with wonder, until we traded it for safety." He gestured, and the chamber transformed. Around them unfolded holographic constellations, billions of civilizations flickering like fireflies in the dark. Some shone bright, others faded to embers, a few winked out entirely. Navarro felt a chill. "You've seen them all, too many," Kether said quietly. "And everyone began with sails." He pointed to a projection, wooden ships on ancient Earth seas, then iron hulls, rockets, the Odyssey. The scenes overlapped seamlessly, humanity's history laid bare like a single heartbeat stretched through time. The Arco's delegates gathered in the upper balconies, whispering in frequencies that shimmered like wind through glass. The Zyran spoke first. "They're primitive, yet their resonance is pure. It vibrates in harmony with the first voyagers." Another delegate nodded. "They carry what we lost, the hunger to move forward without knowing what lies ahead." Navarro stepped forward. "Then why did you stop?" Kether's golden gaze dimmed. "Because we found everything, except meaning. We mapped galaxies, conquered entropy, but when the last mystery vanished, so did our reason to explore." He looked at her intently. "You still have fear, and because of that you still have courage." The humans wandered deeper into the Celestial Archive, past memorials of extinct species. There were ruins suspended in stasis, entire worlds preserved as light sculptures. "It was beautiful, and deeply lonely," Yara whispered. "This is what eternity looks like." Kether nodded sadly. "Yes, eternal memory without the warmth of striving." Then, suddenly, one of the alien consoles flared red. The chamber trembled. An alarm, ancient and long silent, began to echo through the walls. The Zyran turned sharply. "Impossible. That signal hasn't activated in millennia." Kether's tone dropped to a whisper. "The outer abyss stirs again." Navarro's eyes narrowed. "What is that? A storm beyond space? A darkness that devours stars?" He turned to her. "It was the last thing we ever feared." Navarro straightened. "Then maybe it's time someone feared it again." Kether's golden eyes widened, then slowly, he smiled. "Perhaps that someone is you. The stars don't care who survives, but stories they remember who was brave." The warning lights spread through the Celestial Archive like wildfire. The alien vessel, ancient, immense, and once serene, was now alive with alarm. Commander Navarro and her crew stood amidst a storm of glowing sigils flickering across the floor. Kether moved with sudden urgency, his movements fluid, like light rippling through water. "The abyss is not a storm of matter," he explained quickly, voice resonating through the chamber. "It's entropy incarnate, a void that consumes energy, memory, meaning itself. We sealed it away eons ago." Navarro frowned. "And now it's coming back." "Yes," Kether said grimly. "It always returns. It feeds on silence. On civilizations that stop telling their story." That phrase hit Navarro like a strike. Stop telling their story. Was that why the Arcos had stagnated? Why their brilliance had dimmed into stillness? She clenched her fists. "Then we won't be silent." The chamber's holographic walls parted, revealing the cosmos beyond. It was like watching the universe bleed. From the edge of perception, the abyss was approaching a region of space folding inward, where light itself refused to exist. Stars flickered and vanished at its touch, leaving only a wound of darkness. Yara Malik whispered, "It's eating constellations." Kether nodded solemnly. "We once tried to fight it with technology. But entropy cannot be defeated by order, it yields only to creation." Navarro turned toward him. "Then let's create something." The Arcos Council erupted in disbelief. "You are fragile," the Zyran delegate hissed. "Your species barely survived its own gravity well." Navarro's eyes blazed. "And yet we did. With wood, with sails, with faith." Kether's glow intensified. He looked from her to the council. Perhaps that's what we've forgotten, faith, not in gods, but in ourselves. He raised a hand, summoning a vision. Humanity's first fires, their first ships, their first rockets, all burning, all reaching fire, Kether said softly. That's your answer, isn't it? You fight the dark with fire. Navarro nodded. Always. Together, human and Arco's minds merged through the ship's luminous core. Engineers and aliens alike worked in frantic harmony, translating human combustion into Arco's energy. What emerged was something neither species had ever seen before. The flame engine. It was raw, unstable, alive. A fusion of human recklessness and alien mastery. The Arco's ship turned toward the encroaching abyss, light gathering at its heart. Commander Kether said quietly, "The flame may destroy us both." Navarro smiled, eyes fierce. "Then it will be one hell of a story." The celestial archive plunged into the dark. For a heartbeat, everything vanished, then exploded into radiance. The flame roared outward, not as fire but as memory, the sound of laughter, the warmth of oceans, the dreams of children staring at stars. The abyss recoiled. It could consume energy, but not meaning, and meaning was all the flame carried. The darkness cracked, the universe sighed, and when the light faded, the celestial archive still drifted scarred, but alive. The abyss had retreated. In the silence that followed, Kether stood beside Navarro, the stars reflecting in his golden eyes. "You fought with stories," he said. "You reminded us why we began to sail the skies." Navarro looked out the viewport, her reflection framed by endless stars. "You reminded us what waits beyond the map: fear, wonder, and the chance to start again." Kether bowed his head. "Perhaps, Commander Navarro, it is your kind who will write the next chapter of the universe." She smiled faintly. "No, we'll write it together." Back on Earth, months later, astronomers noticed something strange in the sky. A new constellation had appeared, faint but distinct. It resembled a ship with sails made of flame, forever crossing the heavens. They called it the Odyssey. And somewhere far beyond human reach, in the halls of the Arco's dominion, a new entry glowed in the archives. Humans, small bodies, vast hearts. They crossed oceans of water, then oceans of stars. When darkness came, they taught us how to burn again.